Welcome to the Weekend View. Today, we're talking about how 1/3 of America is bracing for the ban on TikTok, the latest Real Housewife of Beverly Hills scandal that has people taking sides, the Call Her Daddy podcast going deep into how a parent's divorce impacts your dating life, and NFL reporter Erin Andrews on the pitfalls of oversharing intimate details about your partner. The Weekend View starts now.
Okay, we have more hot topics. More than 100 million Americans on TikTok are about to have a lot more time on their hands because the app could officially be banned in the USA as of Sunday. Do you feel bad? A lot of users are in a panic about where they go from here. Watch.
Where are we going to evacuate to? Like, what's our escape plan and where are we all gonna meet up? Because I don't wanna lose you bitches and I'm kind of fearful of that.
You're all smart, you're all funny, and you will make a living elsewhere if this party closes. But let's just wait to see what happens first before we get all cracked out handing over our information.
So how are you all dealing with the loss?
So I'm not personally on TikTok, though the show is. I've got some concerns about the national security aspects of it and the data privacy. But just to give people who are obsessed with the app, love the app, also the millions of creators who make their living on TikTok, a little bit of peace. Trump's incoming national security advisor, Mike Waltz, said that this week that there will be some kind of action taken to protect TikTok or an alternative. So if TikTok itself goes away, another company will create the same platform with the same functionality without the Chinese Communist Party listening to what you're doing and saying and serving you up data.
You
that's
really
bad
believe
for you.
no one's going to listen to the next
It'll be
app?
someone else. It'll be us in America.
That's what I think is being lost when we're talking about TikTok, and especially for a certain generation. Like, the Chinese government owns it. And imagine the Chinese government getting into your phone and finding out all sorts of information about financial information, people's phone numbers. I don't have TikTok because of that, because I have those concerns.
Have they done that?
Well, yes,
there's
a lot of data about that. And, even with my children, because I own the phone, I turned that off. They weren't allowed to do it. And they have breakdowns. Like, these kids were...
It's an addiction.
Yeah, these kids were really upset. Their friends were at our house recently, and they were like, where are we going to go? And I was like, to watch television or read a book? Like, I didn't understand.
Or maybe actually have conversations with each other that don't involve sending reels.
Yeah, but I think, to Alyssa's point, apparently people make millions of dollars based on TikTok. So with the cost of living and all the concerns that people are having, I'm a little worried about that.
Yeah, it is. And if you read The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, it's a huge, 10 red flags. Everybody should read it. We're losing a generation. When you think of being an 80s or 90s kid, your parent was worried someone walked down the street, someone would take you. We send our kids into the wild west of the dark web, don't understand it, have no regulations on it, and allow people to view whatever they have. You have pedophiles, drugs, you have algorithms, the body confidence, all the different things. Kids are spending an average of 5 hours. Now, an average just American is spending about 2 hours. But
5 hours?
5 hours, and 11 to 17-year-olds are spending 2 hours a day. TikTok.
Yeah.
The problem is it's doing a dopamine hit. So it literally is like sugar, like drugs. We're just putting it right in their hand. It's like handing them a cigarette and drinks.
I want to tell you something. I have a very successful, busy friend, and everything she does is like based on TikTok. The other day, I was at her house, and she had this thing in her hair, and I'm like, what are you doing? Oh, I saw it on the TikTok. She was making a margarita. I'm like, what flavor is that? Oh, I got it off TikTok. I don't know what she's going to do without TikTok.
I don't have TikTok. I don't watch TikTok, but apparently I'm on TikTok.
Oh.
Yeah.
Brian and I have over 1 million hits on this video. Watch.
They're eating the pets.
They're eating the dogs.
They're eating the cats.
They are eating the pets in Springfield.
Over 1 million hits. Why? Yeah. So here's another topic. For those of you not versed in the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, whoever you are, here's the feud of the week. Housewife Dorit is in the middle of a divorce. Dorit.
Okay.
Like
Shows,
Dorito, but without the O.
Okay. All right, Dorit is in the middle of a divorce. And she's not happy that her friend Kyle is still in touch with her estranged hubby.
Her friend?
Yeah, you gotta watch the clip first and then we'll discuss it. Go ahead.
If I ever thought in the past, ever, that it bothered me that PK and I sent memes, I would never have done that.
When I heard it, I definitely was like, oh, that's the breaking of the girl code.
It's not the texting, it's that you don't actually tell me. It's not cool. And it hurt me. When they made the announcement, I said, I know you have a lot of friends, but I am also one, and here if you need me. I've never repeated anything you've shared with me and never would.
So it's like this.
I'm confused.
I'm gonna explain it to you.
Yeah.
So let's take Anna. Let's say Anna and
Why are
Al.
you taking me?
Because I'm looking at you right now.
Okay.
All right, I won't. You want me to do you?
No, go ahead.
You can do
All
me.
right.
Okay.
No, you're gonna stay married. I know that. Let's say Anna and Al are getting a divorce. They're not. I'm kidding. I'm
Okay.
kidding. Let's say they got a divorce.
Got it.
Now we're friends with Anna. All of a sudden, you or I start calling up Al and hang out with him. She won't let me.
No, but I think that's what I think.
Anna would punch me in the throat. That's crazy. You can't do that. You have to choose when something like that happens, and you should choose your friend,
Right.
not your friend's ex-husband.
No, but I think
that's
the problem,
crazy.
in this situation, and I'm not quite caught up on this, but I will be this weekend because I'm going to be
Bravo,
watching
Anna.
anything other than the swearing in. So I'm going to be on a Real Housewives tear this weekend. But I think the problem here is that Kyle was doing it behind Dorit's back. In other words, like my ex, we share friends. There are friends who were very good friends of his who remain very good friends of mine. That's fine. Everybody knows, we all, talk about it and we have boundaries. The problem is if you are doing it behind somebody's back.
Well, and a further complicating factor,
I don't like it in the front
as a
or
Real
the back.
Housewives expert here at the
Not
table.
everyone does, honey.
No, but
That's gonna get taken out of context, people.
the problem here too.
Then you're gonna tell me I got my head.
Let me do my Bravo breakdown. Sorry. The problem too is the two couples were all very dear friends, and Dorit and PK were separated, but they were still talking every day, and they had recently decided to fully cut off communication, work through an intermediary to deal with their kids. Yet Kyle's talking to him regularly.
They have kids together
Yes,
too?
I think that makes it extra hurtful when you're dealing with.
No. They don't have kids. Each
No, I'm
couple
talking
has
about
their
this
own
couple,
children.
yeah.
This
Okay.
married
And
couple has
They're not
children.
swingers.
Yes,
They're different.
yes.
No, but I'm
the
saying
separated
the
couple has
separated
children.
couple has children. All the more reason why
I think it made it
Dorito
much
shouldn't
worse.
be doing that.
No, it was Kyle, not Dorit.
Kyle.
It just felt very insensitive to the pain she was
I don't
going
like
through.
it.
So I one time with a friend's ex, when they separated, I wrote him a note to say,
Why?
well, because they had been together for years and years and years. They decided to divorce, and I knew my friendship would go with her. But I wanted him to know that he had been so good to my.
You don't have
me
to
and-
explain
But
everything.
that
You
put a
overthink
period
it.
on it. That's
Sarah?
okay.
Yeah, I
That's
felt
a
I needed to
goodbye.
just say,
Yeah.
this isn't personal, but I'm with her.
Yes.
Sarah,
but
fair warning. If God forbid anything happened between my husband,
I'm with you, Sonny.
myself,
I
do
love
not,
it, bitch.
do not send him a little text message talking about I'm here
wouldn't
for you.
dare.
No, but I was
Nobody do
Dr.
that.
Manny is not the same. This was an age where I
like
was
it.
interacting a lot with them,
No,
and he was
you know,
always so
In Spanish, they have
No
a saying,
bueno.
se quedó con el mandado.
Sí.
When somebody, you're all laughing over there. When somebody like goes and consoles the party that's been left, all of a sudden, they're together.
Yeah.
I'm not together with him.
What if the friend
was not
started?
Max.
What if the friend started sleeping with your ex-husband? Oh. We'll be right back.
The Weekend View is sponsored by Rock Skincare.
And we're back. So NFL reporter Erin Andrews shared a cautionary tale about oversharing. She told Success magazine that her husband had a big problem with the way she went public with their 9-year struggle to have a baby through IVF. She spilled the tea on Success magazine without consulting whether he wanted her to. Okay? I personally do not talk about my daughter unless she told me from the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, do not talk about me unless it's really, really complimentary. But I just never brought that to the show.
What about Steve?
He's like Howard Hughes. He's like, don't talk about me. He doesn't mind if I talk about him, but he never comes on the show. You've never seen him.
No,
he
but I've
doesn't.
gotten into trouble on this. I have different boundaries of comfort than my husband does, and we both work, we do our own thing. He doesn't watch the show, we're fine. Well, one day, the topic was about having sex on your wedding night. And I had said, you know...
Oh, yes, I remember that.
I said, no, we didn't have sex. I mean, it was a long day. It was a big day. We ate cake, like all the things, in bed. So Max ends up asking me, like, what'd you say on the show? And I was like, which part? I say so many things. Like,
what made him ask?
Well, because someone from his law firm had texted him,
Snitch.
sorry you didn't get laid on your wedding night. Hope the cake was amazing.
And not the kind of cake you're thinking.
And that's when I realized,
I remember that.
Yeah, I really was interested in this because I shared on the show that my husband and I are going through IVF right now, and you and I have talked about, you've been open with your journey there. But I talked to my husband before, and I made sure that he was comfortable because it is a joint thing that you do with a partner. They have a role in it. It opens them up to conversations. But I also think it's so important when women do talk about it because so many are going through it and struggling silently and not sharing
What
it.
is your compromise then?
He agreed with me. He thought if I was comfortable, he gave me his blessing, but we did have that conversation beforehand.
Joy warned me when I joined the show that I should not talk about the children and things that they do without getting their permission first. But I joined the show like 9 years ago, and so they were younger, and I just felt that I could say things. And I learned the hard way that they don't like that. They want some ownership over their own lives and over their own stories. And we sign up for this, but they don't. And but I also agree with you about the IVF because, as people know, I had several rounds of IVF and 5 miscarriages, and it was a really difficult time. And 20 years ago, it was filled with shame. No one talked about it. And I was like deep on, no one talked about it. And so I felt
all those years of Oprah and Phil Donahue and nobody
no one
mentioned
talked
miscarriages?
about it. And I was, it was a...
Well, they didn't, it's a shameful, people
felt ashamed that they couldn't get pregnant, and
something was wrong with them. No, but that's what you do.
I will tell you, though, I think that
so it's
people
important to talk about it.
who watch folks on TV get very invested and follow you and trust you. So if you're going to say something and share something, you better be truthful.
Yeah.
Right? Because I see some people on TV, it happens in The Real Housewives, where they're projecting this perfect marriage. And
I didn't even know you watched it that much.
Oh, honey, wait till the next 4 years. I'm going to be watching everything that isn't news. But my point is that sometimes you're projecting this perfect life and this perfect marriage, and then you get caught with a bunch of problems.
The flip side, too, is that viewers should give people grace because you never know people's private struggles that they're going for. We have to show up. This is a job. You have to show up and put your best foot forward. There's going to be days.
But that's the importance, I think, of the vision of what Barbara Walters had when she looked at this job, because not only was it the only female panel show, but it was where women's issues took the front seat of importance. And when you think of everything women have always suffered through, even back to a period, when you walk through a hallway with a tampon, everyone goes, oh my God, because you remember high school and junior high where you're like this and everything.
Shame.
Why? Everyone pees, poops, and has period. Like, this is what we do. And so I think the normalizing of all
you're taking us a little too far. We don't need to go through every...
No, I am. No, I tell you, we own all the things. And among women, we don't treat it as freakish.
Fortunately, her office is next to mine because I don't want to know every time you pee and poop.
Girl, I am going to alert you.
All right, do we have time to do one more topic?
Yes,
oh,
please.
God.
Okay.
This one, we all know how divorce can impact kids caught in the middle, but former Disney stars, Ali and Dorito and AJ.
Ali and AJ.
Literally just the letters A and J.
Ali and AJ told the Call Her Daddy podcast that they carried that impact into adulthood.
The impact of what? I forgot.
Of that divorce.
Take a look.
Watch.
I think that AJ, as the little sister vibes, was more heartbroken by it.
Yeah, I took it
and
really
shattered
bad.
and took it really bad.
What age did they get divorced?
19
and 21.
Okay. Yeah. In a way, you're old enough to know exactly what happened, all the details. You were left
at home.
To be at home with my mom, and you were kind of mourning the divorce a little bit with her. So I think in a weird way, you carried some of that trauma.
So who's from a divorced family here? Anybody?
I am.
You are.
Yeah.
I begged mine to get divorced. They refused. How about you? No? They're still together.
No.
All her parents are always coming here. And yours? They
it's
stayed
complicated.
together. Yeah. Mine stayed together. So are you scarred from the divorce?
You know, I will say that it changed my life forever. And I was 16. I was on my way to college. And when I came back, my parents were living in different places. And I didn't have the same home that I grew up in. And that was pretty difficult. And I will say, when I decided that I would be married, divorce is not an option for me. And it's because of the way it made me feel.
Well, wait, that's into Yeah, go ahead, Alyssa.
I was just going to say, it definitely affected me. I actually remember my parents divorced more than I remember them married. But a really strange moment in my 20s, I talk about it on a podcast with Brian. None of my relationships in my 20s were particularly healthy. And one day a girlfriend, I said, why can't I just find a healthy relationship? And she said, did you ever think it's because you didn't have an example
You didn't have that model.
And it was like lights went off. It had never occurred to me that I was impacted by not having that example.
But mothers of my generation, a lot of them were depressed. And they had no way to get it. They had no
I watched
jobs.
Mad Men.
They had no option but to stay married, even if they were unhappy. So was that better? I should say to my mother, he was a gambler, my father. Even though they seemed to have a great
At what
sex
age
life.
did you start telling your mom that they should get divorced?
Because my mother said to me...
Because she could hear them. They were in...
No, I couldn't.
Sorry,
because my mother, when I was 35, I said this to you the other day. My mother said to me, your father likes his matinees. And I said, when did he ever go to the theater?
You did tell me that, yeah.
But when did you start telling your mom? At what age were you when you started saying to your mom, I'm begging you to get a divorce?
When she'd be screaming at him, you know how much money you're wasting on those horses like that. I'd say, well, why don't you leave? And she'd say, where am I going to go? I'd say, how about to Gamat Angelutz's house around the corner? I mean, there was no option to go anywhere.
Interesting.
We'll be right back.
The Weekend View is sponsored by Rock Skincare.
Whoopi sat down with Brian on this week's Behind the Table podcast, where she talked about her triumphant return to the stage as Miss Hannigan in Annie. Watch the clip.
When you first told me about doing Annie, I thought immediately, oh my God, that's perfect casting. Had you ever thought about playing Miss Hannigan before?
Never
ever.
No.
And how did they came to you, or?
Yeah, they came to me and made an offer, and I said okay. And then I gave them the
times you could do it.
The times I could do it,
Yeah.
and they said, and we have to block this out because I'm going down to Orlando to do Candlelight.
Right, which is, so for people who don't know, you do this almost every year. You
Yeah.
go to Epcot, and it's
Yeah.
the reading of the Christmas story,
Yeah.
and they do a beautiful job
They
with it.
really do, with choirs and all kinds of stuff. And they said, oh, that's when we're opening. I said, well, I've already committed to this.
Right.
And it was just 2 days, but it was a commitment. They said no, and I said no, and we said, see ya. And then
they came back.
It came back. And I said the same thing. These are the only 2 dates that I can't do. And so they said, okay, we want you.
I feel like a lot of people were like, oh, she's doing Broadway, not realizing that you've done Broadway quite a lot in your career, obviously.
A couple of times, yeah.
I mean, you obviously became famous for your one-woman show.
Yeah.
And then you've been in musicals before, you've sang before, you've done all these things. That being said, when I asked you about whether it was just getting to ride a bicycle again, actually when my wife and I came backstage, she asked you that, and you said, no, it was not.
The bike had been beat up and run over and, smashed up. And it took me a little while. And also, I get chewed up quite often in our lives here at the show. And I just wasn't sure.
See, I've always found, and again, it's easier for me on the outside of being Whoopi Goldberg, but there is a line in the world of, there's Whoopi, who says things on The View that some people love and some people don't love, and then there's the other Whoopi. There's actress Whoopi, and everybody loves actress Whoopi, or most people love actress Whoopi.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't worried about it. But let's talk about that, because I know you don't read reviews, and I'm just going to read a couple snippets here. This is just little things. The New York Times said you were a holiday gift as Miss Hannigan. I agree. People magazine said Whoopi Goldberg enters her villain era during Delicious debut as Miss Hannigan and Annie. And Theater Mania said, in an excellent Annie revival, Whoopi Goldberg reminds us why she's a comedic force. That's got to be nice to hear that people are seeing it that way.
It was, and it was a very different response than I was anticipating.
Oh, well, I'm glad they were surprised. I was expecting it, but I'm glad you were surprised by it.
No, I'm thrilled by it, and and in fact, it's the truth. This is what I do. You know, I have been on television talking as a talking head for the past 14 years or whatever. But at my core, I'm an actor.
Right.
You know, and people don't really often like hearing what actors have to say, but it's a lot easier for me to say as an actor, I don't care that you don't want to know what I'm doing, but this is what it is.
I don't know if you said it on the show or during a commercial break, but you were talking about how it did kind of reawaken something in you where, like, you want to do this kind of thing more.
Well, it's not that I want to do more of it. It was a good reminder that this is also who I am. This is also who I am and what I've done. And, I don't watch my movies when they come on television, and I don't really remember
you don't like if you see a sister actor or ghost or something?
No, because I know how everything ends.
Sure, I get
how it all ends. But it is a boon to my soul that I've made some really meaningful films and some really bad ones. But for the most part, I'm a really good actor. I'm good at what I do. I'm good at what I do. And so it made me proud to remind myself, because, we were talking to Brooke Shields today, and she was talking about, we have to give ourselves flowers. We have to give ourselves kudos. And it has nothing to do with being so highfalutin. It has to do with, I am good at something. I'm good at this.
Yeah. No, I mean, they don't give those EGOTs to anybody. And so so let's talk about Annie a little bit more. What was it like working with all the kids?
The kids were terrific. It was like hanging out with my great-granddaughter.
That's great.
Yeah, and they were...
Did they have an idea of you from acting at all? Or yeah, I would think they would have.
Because they were forced to watch a couple of the movies which they could see.
Right.
And they hadn't realized...
The connection of
it, which is kind of like it was when my grandkids finally figured out.
My daughters will occasionally watch something that they don't know you're in and see you and be like, Dad! And I'm like, no, we've talked about this. She's
or they hear my voice, or they hear my voice. Yeah, I'm kind of known in the world, which is really nice to have fans in Japan and Germany and Latvia and the Ukraine and in Africa and Asia and Italy and, name a country, because oftentimes my films have been the way that people learn to speak English.
I've heard that from people in our audience quite a bit. They'll raise their hand and tell you that. That's unbelievable.
Folks say to me all the time, listen, I learned my English from you. And I said, oh, well, you must be really good at cussing. They were like, yeah, we are.
Check out the rest of Whoopi on Behind the Table wherever you get your podcasts, and have a great day, everybody. Take a little time to enjoy the Weekend View.